3 days had passed since the battle. The debris field around Valari Prime was still vast, a graveyard of broken ships and shattered dreams. But on the planet's surface, something unexpected was happening. Human soldiers walked among the ruins. Not to conquer, not to demand payment, but to help. The Shadow Fleet had sent every available person to the surface engineers, medics, technicians, even the cooks and maintenance workers. Everyone who could lift debris or bandage a wound was working alongside the Valari. Survivors. Admiral Hyan stood on a hill overlooking what had once been the capital city. Most of the crystal towers were gone, reduced to rubble and ash. But here and there, small groups of people were already clearing the destruction, beginning the long process of rebuilding. Commander Sora approached him from behind. "Sir, the final casualty report is ready." Hyan did not turn around. "Tell me." "We lost 3 ships, Nightblade, Silent Hunter, and Dark Promise. Total crew losses, 473. Another 200 wounded, 50 of them seriously." Sora paused. "The Valari losses are still being counted, but early estimates suggest at least 2 million dead." 2 million. Hyan closed his eyes. It was a massive number, a tragedy beyond words. But it could have been so much worse. If the Shadow Fleet had not arrived, the entire species would have been wiped out. And the Devourers? All destroyed. 312 ships, estimated crew of 100,000. None survived. Hyan nodded slowly. Good. These creatures had earned their fate. "There's something else, sir," Sora said. "Earth Command has been in contact. The news of our battle has spread across the galaxy. Every species knows about us now. They know about the Shadow Fleet. I expected that. The High Council is concerned. They worry that other species will fear humanity now." Hyan finally turned to face her. "Let them fear us, as long as that fear keeps them from attacking the innocent." Sora looked at him carefully. "The Council has ordered us to return to Earth immediately. They wanted to brief us. They want to decide what to do with us. What do you think they will decide?" Sora shrugged. "I don't know. They might disband the fleet. They might put us all in prison. Or they might decide we're useful and keep us in operation." She smiled slightly. "Either way, we saved an entire species today. That has to count for something." Hyan turned back to look at the city. Below, he could see Dr. Dohan working in a medical tent, treating wounded Valari. Nearby, a group of human engineers were helping to restore power to a damaged shelter. "We're not leaving yet?" Hyan said quietly. "Sir? Tell Earth Command that we have repairs to complete and wounded to tend. We will return when we are ready." Sora raised an eyebrow. "That might not go over well with the High Council. Then they can come here and tell me themselves." Hyan's voice was firm. "I am not abandoning these people until I know they can survive on their own." Sora nodded, a hint of pride in her eyes. "Understood, Admiral. I'll send the message." As she walked away, Hyan noticed a small group of Valari approaching the hill. They were children, young ones, with pale blue skin and large silver eyes. Behind them was Elder Sulki, the same woman who had contacted them after the battle. The children stopped a few meters away, looking at Hyan with a mixture of fear and curiosity. He understood. He was a human, a member of a species they had never met before. And he was wearing the black uniform of the Shadow Fleet, marking him as something even other humans feared. Elder Sulki stepped forward. "Admiral Hyan, these children wanted to meet you. They wanted to thank the human who saved their world." Hyan looked at the children. The youngest could not have been more than 5 or 6 years old by human standards. Her eyes were wide and bright, untouched by the horror that had consumed her world. Slowly, Hyan knelt down so that he was at eye level with her. He did not smile. He had almost forgotten how, but he tried to make his voice gentle. "Hello, little one. What is your name? The child looked at Elder Sulky, who nodded encouragingly. Then she looked back at Hyan. I am called Sue, she said in a small voice. Are you the one who made the bad people go away? Hyan considered the question. Yes, I am one of them. Were you scared? He thought about it honestly. A little. But I had to be brave. Your people needed help. My mother says humans are scary. Sue tilted her head. But you don't look scary. Hyan felt something crack inside him, something that had been frozen for a very long time. Sometimes scary people can be helpful. Sometimes the people everyone fears are the ones who protect the innocent. Sue seemed to consider this. Then she reached out and touched Hyan's hand. Her skin was cool and smooth against his weathered fingers. Thank you for saving us, she said simply. I was very scared when the bad ships came. But now I'm not scared anymore. Hyan did not trust himself to speak. He simply nodded and gently squeezed the child's hand. Elder Sulky watched this exchange with tears in her eyes. Admiral, she said, before you came, my people believed that violence was always wrong. We thought that peaceful species were better than those who knew how to fight. We were wrong. Hyan stood and faced her. You were not wrong to believe in peace. It is a noble belief. Perhaps, but we learned that peace cannot exist without someone willing to defend it. The elder reached out and placed her hand over her heart, a Valari gesture of deep respect. Your people came to save us. Your warriors died to protect us. We will tell this story for generations. We will teach our children that humanity stood for us when no one else would. From across the ruined city, more Valari were emerging. They came from shelters and temporary camps, from medical tents and rescue sites. Thousands of them, all moving toward the hill where Hyan stood. Sora returned to his side, looking at the gathering crowd with surprise. Admiral, what's happening? Hyan watched as the Valari continued to arrive. Many were wounded. Many had lost family, friends, everything they had ever known. But they came anyway, drawn by something that transcended their grief. When the crowd had grown to tens of thousands, Elder Sulky raised her voice. People of Valari, we have come to honor those who saved us. We have come to thank the humans of the Shadow Fleet. The crowd fell silent. These warriors came from across the stars to answer our call. They did not know us. They owed us nothing. But they came anyway, and they fought for us. The elder's voice grew strong. They lost their friends. They sacrificed their lives. They did what we could not do for ourselves. She turned to face Hyan directly. In the name of all Valari, living and dead, I declare this day sacred. Every year we will remember what humanity did for us. We will remember the Shadow Fleet. We will remember Admiral Hyan and his warriors who came from the darkness to save us. Then, slowly, every Valari in the crowd placed their hand over their heart and bowed their heads. Hyan stood in silence, watching this display of gratitude. Behind him, his crew, the murderers, the criminals, the monsters watched as well. Many of them had tears streaming down their faces. For the first time in their lives, they were not being feared or hated. They were being honored. Nari, her arm in a sling from her injuries, stood with what remained of her squadron. She thought about all the lives she had taken in the past, the innocent people who had died because of her mistake. She could never undo that. But today, she had saved lives. Today, she had been a protector. Dr. Dawn, standing near his medical tent, felt the weight of his past crimes pressing against him. He had done terrible things in the name of science. He had caused suffering that could never be forgiven. But here, on this alien world, he had spent 3 days healing the wounded and comforting the dying. It was not enough. It would never be enough. But it was something. Admiral Hyan looked out at the sea of bowed heads. He thought about Taiho, who had sacrificed himself to save the Iron Wake. He thought about the crews of the Nightblade and the Silent Hunter, who had died fighting against impossible odds. They had been criminals. They had been killers. They had been the worst humanity had to offer, but in the end, they had also been heroes. Sora, Hyan said quietly, tell Earth Command that the Shadow Fleet will remain at Valari Prime for 1 more week. We will help with reconstruction. We will train their people in basic defense. And then we will return home. Sora nodded. What should I tell them about the High Council's orders? Hyan looked at her, and for the first time in years, something like a smile touched his lips. Tell them that the Shadow Fleet has found a new purpose. Tell them that the monsters they created have become something else. And what is that, sir? Hyan turned back to face the Valari crowd, still honoring his crew with their ancient gesture of respect. Protectors, he said. We are protectors. Above them, the stars shone down on a broken world that had been saved. The Shadow Fleet had answered a distress call, and the galaxy would never forget what they had done. The monsters of Earth had become its greatest heroes. And somewhere in the cosmos, other species were watching and learning that humanity would come for those in need. Even the darkest souls could find redemption. Even the most feared warriors could become guardians. This was humanity's message to the universe, and the universe listened. The destruction of the Devourer flagship changed everything. Without their commander, the enemy fleet fell into chaos. Ships began to scatter, each captain making their own decisions. Some tried to fight. Some tried to flee. None of them succeeded. Admiral Hyan gave his orders with cold precision. There was no anger in his voice, no hatred, only a grim determination to finish what they had started. Hunt them down, he said. Every last one. The Shadow Fleet spread across the system. 9 ships remained, 9 black vessels crewed by humanity's darkest souls. They chased the fleeing devourers with relentless efficiency. Commander Sora coordinated the pursuit from the bridge of the Iron Wake. Enemy cruiser detected in Sector 7. Destroy a cold fire. Intercept and destroy. Copy that, Commander. Moving to engage. 2 fighters attempting to reach hyperspace in Sector 12. Go Squadron. Pursue and eliminate. On it, Commander. The hunters had become the hunted. The devourers who had come to slaughter innocent people were now dying. One by one, in the cold darkness of space. On one of the fleeing ships, a devourer captain named Kreth watched his sensors with growing despair. The human ships were everywhere. Every time he tried to run, they found him. Every time he tried to fight, they destroyed his escorts. How is this possible? He demanded. They were only 12 ships. We had 300. His first officer shook his head. These creatures fight like nothing we have ever seen. They do not fear death. They do not retreat. They simply destroy. Then we must escape. We must warn our homeworld about these humans. The hyperspace engines are damaged, Captain. We need 20 minutes to repair them. 20 minutes. Kreth looked at his screens. The nearest human ship was 15 minutes away. Perhaps they would make it. They did not. The destroyer Quiet Storm appeared out of nowhere, dropping from behind a debris field where it had been hiding. Its captain, a woman named Mireille, had anticipated exactly where the fleeing devourer would go. Target acquired, she said calmly. Firing. Kreth's ship lasted exactly 7 seconds. Across the system, similar scenes played out again and again. The devourers tried every trick they knew, hiding, ambushing, surrendering. None of it worked. The Shadow Fleet had no interest in prisoners. They had seen the burning cities. They had seen the dead children. There would be no forgiveness today. Back on the Iron Wake, Dr. Doan was busy in the medical bay. The battle had produced casualties, and his skills were needed. He moved from patient to patient, treating burns, sealing wounds, saving lives. One of the wounded was a young engineer named Hannah. She had been caught in an explosion when an enemy weapon breached the hull. Her left arm was badly burned, and her breathing was labored. "Easy," Doan said gently, injecting painkillers into her system. "You're going to be fine." "Did we win?" Hannah asked weakly. "We're winning. The enemy is running." Hannah smiled through her pain. "Good. They deserve this. After what they did to those people." Doan nodded. He had seen the recordings of the Devourer attack. The burning cities. The murdered families. Even for someone like him, someone who had done terrible things in his past, the cruelty of it was shocking. "Rest now," he told Hannah. "Let me worry about keeping you alive." As he worked, Dohan thought about his own journey. 20 years ago, he had been a brilliant researcher who had crossed ethical lines that should never be crossed. He had experimented on living people in the name of science. He had caused suffering and death. He had been sentenced to life in the Shadow Fleet as punishment. For 2 decades, he had served as the fleet's chief medical officer, trying to balance the scales. Trying to save as many lives as he had taken, he knew he could never fully pay for his crimes. But days like today days, when he could help, when he could heal these days, gave him a small measure of peace. Meanwhile, the battle was entering its final phase. The Devourer fleet had been reduced from 300 ships to less than 50. These survivors had grouped together for a final stand, forming a defensive formation near the edge of the system. Admiral Hyan studied their position on the tactical display. They know they cannot escape. They're hoping reinforcements will arrive. Will they? Sora asked. Unknown. But we cannot take that chance. We end this now. Hyan opened a channel to all his ships. Attention all vessels. The enemy has formed their final defensive position. We will attack in 2 waves. First wave will draw their fire and weaken their formation. Second wave will deliver the killing blow. He paused, considering his next words carefully. I know you are tired. I know we have lost friends today. Captain Taiho, the crews of Nightblade and Silent Hunter. They died so that innocent people could live. His voice hardened. Do not let their sacrifice be meaningless. Finish this fight. Destroy the enemy. And then we can rest. The Shadow Fleet assembled for the final assault. The survivors of Ghost Squadron, now flying new fighters pulled from reserve, formed up alongside the destroyers. The remaining cruisers took position behind them, ready to exploit any weakness. Nari, recovered from her earlier ejection and now flying a fresh fighter, looked at her scanner. The enemy formation was tight, disciplined. They were going to make the humans pay for every ship. Ghost Squadron, she said. Stay close to me. We go in fast, hit hard, and get out. No heroics this time. Copy that, Ghost Leader. Just one question, Nari. Does ramming your fighter into an enemy cruiser count as heroics? Despite everything, Nari laughed. Shut up and fly, Ghost 5. The attack began. The first wave, 4 destroyers and all remaining fighters, dove toward the Devourer formation. The enemy responded with overwhelming firepower. Space lit up with weapons fire. Shields flared and failed. Ships began to die on both sides. But the first wave was doing its job. The Devourers were focused on them, pouring everything they had into stopping the assault. They did not see the second wave approaching from a different angle. The Iron Wake led the second wave, its weapons fully charged and ready. Behind it came the Burning Star, still damaged but operational, and 3 other cruisers. Now, Admiral Hyan ordered. The second wave opened fire. Their weapons struck the unprotected rear of the Devourer formation. Ships exploded. Shields collapsed. The tight formation that had seemed so strong moments ago was now a death trap. The Devourers tried to turn, tried to respond, but it was too late. They were caught between 2 forces, taking fire from every direction. Enemy flagship destroyed? Sora reported. Correction. They don't have a flagship anymore. Enemy formation is collapsing. Keep firing, Hyan said. Do not stop until they're all gone. The final minutes of the battle were brutal and efficient. The Shadow Fleet showed no mercy, gave no quarter. They had come to save the Valari, and they had done so. But they had also come for revenge, and that too would be complete. When the last Devourer ship finally exploded, a strange silence fell across the fleet. The battle was over. 300 enemy ships had become debris and dust. The threat was ended. Admiral Hyan sat back in his chair and closed his eyes for a moment. 6 hours. The entire battle had taken only 6 hours. And in that time, his fleet had destroyed an armada more than 25 times its size. Sir, Minji said quietly, I'm receiving a transmission from the planet's surface. It's the Valari. Hyan opened his eyes. Put it through. A face appeared on the main screen. A Valari female with pale blue skin and silver eyes that were filled with tears. She was older, her face lined with age and grief. I am Elder Sulki of the Valari Council, she said. We have watched your battle. We have seen what you have done for us. Her voice broke. We do not know who you are. We do not know why you came. But thank you. Thank you for saving our people. Hyan stood and faced the screen. For a long moment, he did not speak. Then, slowly, he answered. We are the Shadow Fleet of Earth. We came because you asked for help. He paused. And we do not abandon those in need. The elder bowed her head. Then humanity has earned the eternal gratitude of the Valari. We will never forget this day. We will never forget you. The transmission ended. Admiral Hyan remained standing, looking at the screen where the elder's face had been. Sir, Sora said, what do we do now? Hyan turned to face his crew. They were exhausted, wounded, but alive. They had yet done the impossible. Now, he said, we help them rebuild. The battle had raged for 3 hours. The space around Valari Prime was filled with debris, burning ships, and the bodies of the dead. The Shadow Fleet had lost 2 vessels, the Nightblade and the Silent Hunter. Their crews had died fighting, taking dozens of enemy ships with them, but the Devourers were losing worse. Much worse. Admiral Hyan stood at his command station, watching the tactical display. Red dots represented enemy ships. Green dots were his own. When the battle started, there had been over 300 red dots. Now there were less than 200. Sir, Commander Sora reported, enemy formation is breaking apart. Their fleet cohesion is failing. They are not used to losing, Hyan observed. They came here to slaughter helpless people. They did not expect a real fight. Should we offer them a chance to surrender? Hyan was silent for a moment. He thought about the Valari transport ships he had watched explode. He thought about the families inside them. He thought about what these creatures had done to innocent people. No, he said finally. No surrender. No mercy. Today, they learn what happens when they attack the helpless. The order went out across the fleet. The Shadow Fleet tightened their formation and prepared for the next phase of the assault. In her fighter, Nari was down to her last few missiles. Her craft was damaged, one engine was failing, and her shields were almost gone. But she was still flying, still fighting. Go Squadron, report, she called over the comm. Ghost 2 here. I'm hit but operational. Ghost 5, still in the fight. Ghost 7, running low on ammunition. Only 7 of her original 20 fighters remained. The others had died in the chaos of battle. Nari pushed down her grief. There would be time to mourn later. Right now, she had work to do. Form up on me, she ordered. We're going after their supply ships. Cut off their fuel, and this fight ends faster. The 7 fighters banked away from the main battle and headed toward the rear of the enemy formation. The Devour supply ships were large, slow, and poorly defended. They had never expected anyone to get past their warships. They were wrong. Nari and her squadron hit the supply convoy like lightning. Their weapons tore through the thin hulls of the fuel transports. Massive explosions lit up the darkness as ship after ship died. Multiple hits. Ghost 2 shouted. Their fuel reserves are gone. Nari smiled grimly. Good. Now let's get back to the main fight. As they turned to rejoin the battle, Nari noticed something on her scanner. A single Velari transport, hiding behind a chunk of debris. It was small, damaged, and filled with life signs, civilians who had somehow survived the initial attack. Ghost 2, she said. I'm detecting survivors. Velari civilians. I see them. They're trying to reach the planet's far side. But there are enemy fighters between them and safety. Nari made her decision in an instant. All fighters, cover that transport. Get those people to safety. But Nari, we're almost out of weapons. I don't care. Those are innocent people. Move. The 7 fighters changed course, placing themselves between the Velari transport and the enemy. Devour fighters saw the easy target and moved to attack. Nari met them head-on. Her last missiles streaked toward the enemy. 2 Devour fighters exploded. Then she was among them, using her guns, her skill, everything she had. She took hit after hit, but she kept fighting. Transport is clear. Ghost 5 reported. They're reaching the safe zone. Nari's fighter was falling apart around her. Fires burned in her cockpit. Her controls were barely responding. But she had done it. She had saved them. Ghost Leader, you need to eject. Not yet, Nari said through gritted teeth. Still have a few enemies left. She rammed her dying fighter into a Devour cruiser's bridge. The explosion was massive. Nari ejected at the last possible second, her escape pod shooting away from the destruction. She floated in the darkness of space, watching the battle continue around her. Her body hurt everywhere, but she was alive. And so were the people she had saved. Back on the Ironwake, Admiral Hyan received word of Nari's actions. He allowed himself a moment of pride. His people were monsters, yes, but they were monsters who protected the innocent. Sir, Junho called out, the enemy flagship is moving. It's heading toward the planet's surface. Hyan's eyes narrowed. What is their target? Scanning. Sir, there's a massive underground shelter beneath the capital city. Thousands of Velari are hiding there. The flagship is positioning itself for a direct bombardment. The Admiral understood immediately. The Devourer commander had realized he was losing. He could not defeat the Shadow Fleet in ship-to-ship combat. So he was going to destroy as many civilians as possible before his fleet was wiped out. It was the act of a coward and a murderer. It was exactly what Hyan had expected. All ships, focus fire on that flagship. Do not let it reach bombardment range. The Shadow Fleet turned their attention to the massive enemy vessel. Weapons fire poured toward it, but the flagship's shields held. It was the largest ship in the Devour fleet, and it was heavily armored. Shields at 80%, Junho reported. We're hurting it, but not fast enough. It will reach bombardment range in 4 minutes. Hyan turned to Sora. Commander, prepare the Ironwake for a ramming approach. Sora stared at him. Sir, if we cannot destroy it with weapons, we will destroy it with our ship. Set collision course. Admiral, that will kill everyone aboard. I know. Hyan's voice was calm, almost peaceful. But it will also save thousands of Velari lives. The math is simple. Sora wanted to argue, but she saw the determination in his eyes. He had already made his peace with death. For him, this was simply another mission. All hands, Hyan announced over the ship's intercom. This is the Admiral. We are going to ram the enemy flagship. I am ordering all non-essential personnel to the escape pods. Those who wish to stay and see this through with me are welcome to remain." He paused. "It has been an honor serving with you all." No one moved toward the escape pods. Not a single person. Minji looked up from her station. "Sir, the crew refuses to leave. They want to stay with you." Hyan felt something warm in his chest, an emotion he had almost forgotten how to feel. Pride, gratitude, love for his crew. "Very well," he said softly. "Then we finish this together." The Iron Wake accelerated toward the enemy flagship. Its engines burned at maximum power, pushing the ship faster and faster. The Devourer saw what was happening and tried to change course, but it was too late. The human battleship was coming, and nothing could stop it. "Impact in 60 seconds, Sora announced. 30 seconds. 10 seconds. At the last moment, Captain Taiho's voice came over the com from the destroyer Dark Promise. "Admiral, we have a better idea." The Dark Promise shot past the Iron Wake, moving even faster. It was smaller, lighter, and had been modified by Taiho himself for maximum speed. "Taiho, what are you doing?" Hyan demanded. "Saving your life, sir. Someone has to survive to tell this story." Taiho's voice was calm and steady. "Tell them I died well." The Dark Promise struck the enemy flagship at full speed. The explosion was blinding, a sun being born and dying in a single instant. When the light faded, both ships were gone, completely destroyed. The Devourer commander was dead. His threat to the civilian shelter had ended. But so had Captain Taiho and his entire crew. Admiral Hyan stood in silence on his bridge. He had known Taiho for 20 years. They had fought together, bled together, survived things that should have killed them both. Now Taiho was gone. "Admiral," Sora said quietly, "the enemy fleet is in chaos. Without their flagship, they have no coordination. What are your orders?" Hyan raised his head. His eyes were wet, but his voice was firm. "Destroy them all. Leave none alive." The hyperspace journey took 14 hours. 14 hours of waiting, preparing, and thinking about what was coming. Admiral Hyan spent most of that time in his quarters, studying everything the fleet knew about the Valari and their attackers. The Valari were a gentle species. They had evolved on a beautiful world covered in vast oceans and floating islands. Their bodies were thin and graceful, with pale blue skin and large silver eyes. They lived for art, music, and the pursuit of knowledge. In the 300 years since first contact, they had never raised a weapon against anyone, and now they were dying. The attackers remained unknown. Their ships did not match any design in humanity's databases. They had appeared from nowhere, surrounded the Valari homeworld, and begun their assault without warning or explanation. They simply came to destroy. When the Shadow Fleet finally dropped out of hyperspace, what they saw made even the hardest criminals fall silent. Valari Prime burned below them. The beautiful floating islands were falling from the sky, leaving trails of fire and smoke. The crystal cities that had taken thousands of years to build were shattered ruins. Ships, hundreds of enemy ships circled the planet like hungry animals around wounded prey. "Commander," Sora stood beside Admiral Hyan on the bridge. Her face was pale. "Sir, I'm counting 312 enemy vessels, mostly cruisers and destroyers. They have 12 capital ships." "What about the Valari defense systems?" Hyan asked. "There are none. They never built any." Hyan nodded slowly. It was what he had expected. The Valari had believed in peace. They had trusted that no one would ever want to harm them. They had been wrong. Any Valari ships still operational? Junho checked his screens. A few transport vessels trying to evacuate civilians. The enemy is shooting them down as they launch. His voice shook with anger. "Sir, they are killing unarmed refugees." Hyan watched one of the Volari transports explode on the main screen. It had been carrying families, mothers, children, elderly. They were all dead now, turned to ash in the cold of space. Something changed in the Admiral's eyes. Something that had been sleeping for a very long time woke up. "All ships," he said quietly. "Battle stations." Across the fleet, alarms began to sound. Men and women rushed to their positions. Weapons powered up. Shields activated. The 12 black ships of the Shadow Fleet formed into a combat formation. On the enemy flagship, a massive vessel covered in strange markings, the alien commander noticed the new arrivals. He was a creature of scales and teeth, with 4 arms and eyes that glowed with cruel intelligence. His species had no name that other races could pronounce. They were simply called the Devourers. The commander studied the 12 small ships that had appeared at the edge of the system. He laughed a harsh, grinding sound. "What is this? 12 ships? Against my fleet?" He turned to his officers. "What species are they?" "Unknown, Commander," one of his officers replied. "Their ship designs do not match our records. They are small, black, and—" The officer paused, confused. "They appear to be charging weapons." The commander laughed again. 12 ships wish to fight 300? Destroy them. Do not waste time." 30 Devourer destroyers broke formation and moved toward the Shadow Fleet, their weapons charged, ready to turn the small human ships into debris. On the Iron Wake, Hyan watched them approach. He remained perfectly calm. "Sir," Sora said, 30 enemy ships incoming. They will be in weapons range in 3 minutes. I see them. Should we retreat and call for reinforcements?" Hyan turned to look at her. There was something in his eyes that made Sora step back, a cold fire that burned without heat. "Retreat?" He said. "Commander, do you know why they call this the Shadow Fleet?" Sora did not answer. "It is not because we hide in shadows," Hyan continued. "It is because when we are finished, shadows are all that remain." He turned back to the main screen. "All ships, weapons free. Show them what we are." The Shadow Fleet attacked. The first volley of missiles came from the destroyer Dog Promise, commanded by Captain Tayo. 50 missiles launched in perfect sequence, each one carrying enough explosive power to destroy a building. They streaked across space toward the incoming enemy ships. The Devourers tried to shoot them down, but the missiles were too fast, too many. 8 enemy destroyers vanished in balls of fire within the first 10 seconds of battle. "What?" The Devourer commander's laughter died in his throat. "What is happening?" His officers scrambled to understand. "Commander, those missiles, they are unlike anything we have seen. Their yield is—" Another officer interrupted. 6 more ships destroyed. The small vessels are firing again. The Shadow Fleet did not fight like a normal military force. They did not form lines or follow protocols. They fought like wolves, fast, brutal, and without mercy. Pilot Nari launched from the Iron Wake in her fighter craft, the Ghost Wing. She was not alone. 200 fighters poured from the Shadow Fleet's hangar base, each one piloted by someone who had nothing left to lose. "Go Squadron," Nari said over the comm. "Follow my lead. Target their engines first. Make them bleed." The fighters dove into the enemy formation. They were smaller and faster than anything the Devourers had faced before. Nari flew her craft through a wall of enemy fire, spinning and twisting with impossible skill. She had been trained as an elite pilot before her crime. Now she used those skills for a different purpose. Her weapons tore through a Devourer cruiser's engine section. The massive ship began to drift, helpless. Another Shadow Fleet destroyer moved in and finished it with a single shot. 2 down, Nari reported. Moving to next target. The battle spread across the space around Volari Prime. The Shadow Fleet was outnumbered 25 to 1, but they did not seem to care. They fought with a ferocity that the Devourers had never encountered. On the Iron Wake, Admiral Hyan directed the battle with calm precision. He had fought in 17 major engagements during his career. He had won all of them. Some said he had won because he was brilliant. Others said he had won because he was willing to do things that other commanders would not do. Both were true. "Captain Yuna," he said over the comm, "take your cruiser through their center line. Draw their fire." "Understood, Admiral," Yuna replied. Her ship, the Burning Star, accelerated forward, heading straight for the densest concentration of enemy vessels. The Devourers saw an easy target. Dozens of ships turned their weapons on the single cruiser racing toward them. They fired everything they had. The Burning Star's shields flared under the assault. Damage reports flooded in. Fires broke out on 3 decks. But Yuna did not slow down. "A little closer," she whispered. Just a little closer. When her ship reached the center of the enemy formation, she gave a single command. Now, the Burning Star released its cargo 500 mines, hidden in special pods along its hull. The mines spread in all directions, drawn to the heat signatures of the enemy ships. The explosions were beautiful and terrible. 43 Devour vessels died in that moment, caught completely by surprise. The Burning Star limped away, barely functional, but Yuna was smiling. "Admiral, I think I got their attention." Hyan allowed himself a small nod of satisfaction. "Well done, Captain. All ships, continue the assault. Do not give them time to recover." The Shadow Fleet pressed forward. They had drawn first blood, and they had no intention of stopping. On his flagship, the Devourer commander stared at his screens in disbelief. Nearly 100 of his ships were destroyed or disabled. Against 12 enemies. What are these creatures? He demanded. What species fights like this? No one had an answer. Far below, on the burning surface of Valari Prime, the survivors looked up at the sky. They saw the flashes of battle, the explosions, the streaks of weapons fire. They did not know who was fighting for them. They only knew that someone was. For the first time in days, they allowed themselves to hope. The signal came at 0347 hours, ship time. It was weak, broken, and filled with static. But the words were clear enough. Someone was dying out there in the dark of space, and they were begging for help. Admiral Hyan sat in his command chair aboard the battleship Iron Wake. He was a tall man with gray hair and cold eyes that had seen too much death. His uniform was black, unmarked by any medals or ribbons. Men like him did not receive medals. Men like him were kept hidden from the rest of humanity. "Play it again," he said quietly. The communications officer, a young woman named Minji, pressed the controls. The message filled the bridge once more. "This is the Valari homeworld. We are under attack. Our cities are burning. Our people are dying. We have no military left. Please, if anyone can hear this, we need help. We will accept help from anyone. Please." The voice was female, and it shook with fear and exhaustion. In the background, Hyan could hear explosions and screaming. Then the message ended, and there was only silence. Hyan looked around his bridge. His crew watched him carefully. They were all like him killers, criminals, and soldiers who had done terrible things in humanity's many wars. The Shadow Fleet was where Earth sent its monsters. 12 ships filled with the most dangerous humans alive. They were never meant to be heroes. They were meant to be weapons. "Sir," said Commander Sora, his second in command. She was a small woman with short black hair and a scar that ran down the left side of her face. "That signal is coming from Valari Prime. It's over 40 light years away." "I know where it is," Hyan replied. "The Valari are a peaceful species. They have no weapons, no military. They are scientists and artists." Sora paused. "They have never asked humanity for anything, until now." Hyan stood up and walked to the main viewing window. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly into the void. Somewhere out there, an entire civilization was being destroyed. The Valari had always kept to themselves. They traded knowledge and art with other species. They had never harmed anyone, and now someone was killing them. "Do we know who is attacking them?" Hyan asked. "No, sir," answered Junho, the intelligence officer. He was a thin man with glasses and nervous hands. But based on the energy signatures in the background of the transmission, it looks like a large fleet. At least 300 vessels. 300, Sora repeated. "We have 12. Hyan did not react to this information. He simply continued staring out at the stars. "Sir," Minji said carefully, "should I forward this signal to Earth Command?" "They already have it," Hyan said. "Every ship in range received that distress call. The Valari sent it to everyone. Then help will come from the regular fleet," Sora said. "The proper military." Hyan turned to face her. There was something dark in his eyes. "The nearest Earth fleet is 60 light years away. The Valari will be dead long before they arrive." He paused. "We are the closest." The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. The Shadow Fleet was not supposed to interact with alien species. They were not supposed to be seen by anyone. Their existence was a secret that Earth had kept for over a century. If they answered this distress call, the whole galaxy would learn about them. "Sir," Junho said quietly, "if we go there, everyone will know about us. The other species, the alien governments, all of them. They will know that humanity has a hidden fleet of what?" Hyan asked. "Criminals? Killers? Monsters?" He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Let them know." Before anyone could respond, a new signal came through. It was from Earth Command encrypted, Priority 1. Minji looked at her screen with wide eyes. "Sir, it's a direct order from the High Council. Read it." Minji swallowed hard. "Shadow Fleet is ordered to respond to Valari distress signal. All restrictions lifted. Do what you do best." The words hung in the air. Hyan felt something he had not felt in years purpose. For so long, his fleet had sat in the darkness, waiting for a war that never came. Earth had created them to fight the worst battles, to do the things that regular soldiers could not do. But there had been no such battles. Until now. "You heard the order," Hyan said. He returned to his command chair and sat down. "Set course for Valari Prime. Maximum speed." "Sir," Sora said, "at maximum speed, we will burn through half our fuel reserves. We might not have enough to return home." Hyan looked at her steadily. "Then, we better make sure there's something worth returning to." Sora held his gaze for a moment, then nodded slowly. She understood. They all did. "All ships. This is Admiral Hyan." His voice went out across the fleet, reaching every vessel, every crew member. "We have received a distress call from the Valari homeworld. They are dying. They have asked for help." He paused. "I know what you all are. I know what you have done. I know why you are here, serving on these ships instead of rotting in prison cells. But today, none of that matters. Today, we have a chance to be something else. Something better." He took a breath. "Or maybe not better. Maybe we will always be what we are. But that does not mean we cannot help those who need us. The Valari are innocent. They have done nothing wrong. And someone is trying to destroy them." His voice hardened. "I say we stop them." Across the 12 ships of the Shadow Fleet, men and women listened. They were murderers, war criminals, and worse. They had done terrible things in their lives. But something in the Admiral's words touched them. In the engine room of the Ironwake, a massive man named Taiho put down his tools and looked up at the speaker. He had killed 17 men in a bar fight 10 years ago. Now he kept the ship's engines running. In the weapons bay, a young pilot named Nari checked her fighter craft. She had bombed a civilian city during the Mars Rebellion. It had been a mistake, they said, but the dead were still dead. Now she flew for the Shadow Fleet. In the medical bay, Dr. Dahan prepared his supplies. He had performed illegal experiments on prisoners during the border wars. Now he healed the wounded and asked no questions. All of them listened to their admiral's words. All of them felt something stir inside. All hands, Hyan continued, prepare for combat. We jumped to hyperspace in 10 minutes. The Shadow Fleet came alive. Engines powered up. Weapon systems activated. Crews rushed to their stations. Minji turned to look at Admiral Hyan. Sir, the Valari, they do not know who is coming to help them. Hyan leaned back in his chair. No, they do not. Should we warn them? The Admiral was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. Let it be a surprise. The stars stretched into lines as the Shadow Fleet jumped into hyperspace. 12 black ships, carrying humanity's darkest souls, racing toward a dying world. Help was coming. But it was not the kind of help anyone expected.